Incredible rescue reveals hidden beauty. Sperm whale transformed from millions of parasitic invaders to an emblem of hope. The morning sun glinted off the shimmering waters of the Oregon coast, casting a golden hue over the quaint town of Seaside. It was a picturesque scene, but the mood shifted drastically when the townspeople awoke to witness the grand body of a sperm whale, lifeless and marred by barnacles, washed ashore. The sight was visceral, a haunting reminder of nature's often brutal reality. Among the crowd gathered at the beach was Julia, a 30-something single mother and waitress at the local diner. As her two children clutched her hand tightly, their innocence tinged with confusion, Julia felt a swell of determination rise within her. This was more than just a dead whale, it was an opportunity. She could almost hear her father's voice, the Vietnam veteran with stories etched in his heart, whispering about community, about rising against adversity. "Look at the barnacles. It's like it wore a suit of armor," Julia exclaimed. Her heart raced with hope as she shared the idea that this tragedy could unite the town, transform it. While some folks grumbled about tourist decline, Julia envisioned a festival, the perfect fusion of the school carnival and this majestic creature's tragic tale. "If we come together, it could be beautiful," she urged. But not everyone shared her vision. The town split. One camp, led by a local business owner, saw only the burden. They wheeled out statements about revenue loss, shaking their heads. But Julia's corner found fuel in their outrage. She organized community meetings that echoed with stories of families, passing the microphone to mothers like her, each voice a testament to struggle. They shared tales of debt, job loss, and illness, voices intermingling to form the chorus of the forgotten. A sense of belonging wrapped around them like a familiar blanket. The air grew heavy with tension, and as Julia listened to her father's anxious breaths at home, she found herself spiraling into doubt. What if the town couldn't rise to the occasion? What if all her wishes were just bravado against an unforgiving tide? She remembered her father's distant gaze when he sometimes recounted his past unseen wounds that were, perhaps, deeper than her own. And today, they shared something more than just blood. They shared a connection to the whale, one that Julia had yet to unveil. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let us continue. As the rescue day approached, dark clouds gathered over Seaside, chilling the hopeful hearts of her supporters. Julia rallied the townsfolk. They stood there, a patchwork of emotions and stories, each face pleading for the whale and, in a way, for themselves. She believed in a greater identity, one that could dissolve their differences, but the tension crackled like static. Could they face their fears together? With uncertainty swirling around, Julia glanced at the sky, a tempest brewing both above and within. The fate of the whale tangled with her dreams and fears. This one moment could either forge unity or sink into division. Would they stand together for something larger, or would the weight of indifference drown them all? The storm murmured, a precursor to what lay ahead, raw and real as the tides of life. The clouds hung heavy, mirroring the tension in the air around Julia. The festival day was supposed to be a celebration of resilience, a moment to honor not just the whale but the community that thrived despite adversity. But now, the whispers of doubt spread as fast as the wind rustled through the trees. Is anyone even going to show up? One of the mothers asked, her voice quavering. Julia saw the fear in her eyes, the same fear she felt clenching like a fist around her heart. She needed to fight that feeling, to counter it with hope. Determined to spark a fire within the crowd, Julia stepped forward, gathering her thoughts like the chilled breeze around them. We're not just here for the whale, she shouted to the assemblage, her voice cutting through the gloom. We're here for each other. For every story that's gone untold, for the struggles we've all shared. As her words fired up the crowd, she noticed a flicker of recognition in those who looked on, a shared experience woven through the fabric of their lives. One by one, they began to nod, slowly at first, but then with fervor, as if waking from a slumber brought on by hardship. I lost my brother this year, another voice broke through the murmurs, stronger now, laden with an energy that pulsed through her like electricity. If he were here, I know he'd stand with us. This is about moving forward. Julia's heart soared. Exactly. We're not here to mourn, we're here to celebrate life. This thing that some see as a burden can be an emblem of everything we've endured and everything we can rise from. With a rallying cry building in her chest, Julia could feel the energy pulsing through the group like a heartbeat growing stronger. Perhaps they could turn a tragedy into something beautiful, something they could be proud of, together. As they began discussing plans, laughter broke through the clouds, their voices now echoed with determination. They envisioned booths, games, food, live music, each element a patch sewn into the quilt of their resilience. The festival transformed from a mere idea into a palpable sense of hope, rising like the sun after the storm. However, as the sun dipped low in the sky, casting long shadows across the sand, doubt whispered once more into Julia's heart. What if we fail? She thought, feeling the weight of the world once again settle on her shoulders. With every step they took toward the festival, she wondered if they were building a dream or a fragile facade that might collapse at the slightest pressure. That night, with the sound of the ocean crashing against the shore reverberating in her ears, she paced her small living room. Her children were asleep, curled up on the couch with their favorite blankets. Julia caught sight of the framed photo of her father hanging on the wall, his smile a beacon in the darkness. "If only you were here, Dad," she murmured, her voice barely louder than a whisper. Would he believe in her as much as she believed in their community? A knock at the door startled her, pulling her from her contemplations. Heart racing, she opened it to find a small group of faces illuminated by the dim porch light. They stood there, shoulders squared, frightened yet resolute, ready to join her fight. But as they shuffled inside, an ominous rumble shook the ground beneath them, a sign that their efforts would soon be tested. Would their gathering be enough to weather the storm brewing on the horizon, or would their hope shatter like glass on the shore? The moment of truth was drawing near. As the group stepped into her home, Julia sensed a change in the atmosphere. The weight of uncertainty settled like a thick fog around them, but it was accompanied by a determination she had never felt before. They huddled together in her cozy living room, sharing timid smiles and nervous glances that spoke volumes of their shared fears and hopes. One of the newcomers, a woman named Lydia, was the first to break the silence. "We came to help you with the festival, Julia. We believe in what you're trying to do." Her eyes sparkled with unshed tears, reflecting a mix of sorrow and hope. Julia's heart swelled. "Really? You want to help?" "Of course. We're all in this together, right?" Lydia replied, her voice gaining strength. "Let us make this festival matter for us, for those we've lost, and for the whale." Encouraged by their resolve, Julia felt her own fears begin to melt away, replaced by warmth and optimism. Just then, a loud crash of thunder echoed outside, jolting them all back to the reality of the storm approaching. It served as a harsh reminder that fate was unpredictable, sometimes cruel. But as she looked at their faces, she knew that together they could weather anything. "Let us brainstorm," Julia suggested, her voice steady now. "We need to make a plan, and we need everyone's input." The living room buzzed with ideas. They talked about local musicians willing to perform, the types of food they could prepare, and even some handmade crafts that could raise funds for the community. Each contribution added another stitch in their collective fabric of resilience. Moments of laughter interspersed their serious discussions, creating bonds forged in shared endeavor. However, amidst the excitement, Julia kept glancing at the window, the rain starting to patter against the glass. What if the storm was too strong? What if the turnout was still underwhelming, despite their efforts? The flickering light of self-doubt threatened to dim the glow of their newfound determination. Julia, one of the mothers, Sarah, interrupted her spiraling thoughts. "What if it gets worse? What if people don't come?" Julia felt her throat tighten. Then she realized she had to face these questions head-on if she was to inspire them. "We can't control the weather, but we can control our spirit. No matter what happens, if there's even a handful of us here, we'll make the best of it, she said, meeting each gaze in the room. This festival represents more than just a day of fun, it's us taking a stand. Even if we only have a few folks, we'll make it count. Just then, the lights flickered before plunging the room into darkness. The power went out, plunging them into uncertainty. Gasps filled the space like ripples in a pond, but Julia stood tall. Don't let this scare us. It's just a gust before the dawn. She fumbled around in the dark, pulling out candles and flashlights while the others helped. They huddled closer, lit by the flickering glow, their little bubble of warmth pushing back against the eerie night. Then someone shouted excitedly, "Look!" pointing outside just as a thunderbolt split through the sky, illuminating the scene for a brief moment. It revealed not just rain but signs of life, plants and flowers glistening, awakened by the storm. Maybe that's a sign? Julia said, her heart racing. If we get through this, we can bloom even brighter. As they all looked outside together, waiting for the dark clouds to fade, a scream pierced through the air. The sound echoed against the wind, a frantic call for help that snapped them all back to attention. What was that? Julia breathed, her heart pounding. Something's wrong. Lydia jumped to her feet, her face drained of color, and in that moment, Julia knew their festival wasn't just about community anymore, it might become their rescue mission. The storm was rising, but an unexpected challenge lay ahead. What awaited them outside would test everything they had come together to create. Would they be able to rise to the occasion? Julia's pulse raced as she exchanged glances with each of her friends, the fear etched on their faces palpable in the quiet dark. Stay together, she whispered, her voice barely rising above the storm outside. She could feel the weight of the moment bear down on them. With a flashlight in hand, Julia led the charge towards the door. The wind howled like a wild beast, but their resolve was fierce. Despite the storm, she felt a pull towards the screen that had drawn them from safety. As they stepped out into the tempest, rain lashed against them like icy needles, but it wouldn't stop them. Over there. Lydia pointed, her voice firm even in the chaos. They struggled to make out the figure on the ground, faintly illuminated by flashes of lightning. Julia's heart dropped when she recognized it. It's David. She gasped, recognizing him as one of the local fishermen. He was huddled near the edge of the cliff, and a tide of anxiety surged through her. What's happened? Stumbling over the uneven ground, Julia reached him first. David. Are you okay? She knelt beside him, the rain soaking through her clothes instantly. He looked up at her, his face a mask of pain and urgency. Julia. There's a whale, it's stranded. He pointed towards the rocky shore, barely visible through the sheets of rain. We need to help it. Behind them, Sarah gasped. A whale? But how? There's no time. David shouted, his voice strained. It's the festival, it's still happening. If we don't get her back in the water, she might die. Lydia stepped up, her jaw clenched. Then let us move. We can't let this beautiful creature suffer. They rallied around David's words. Julia felt a fierce determination rise within her. It wasn't just about a festival anymore, it was about life, hope, and something greater than all of them. All right. Julia shouted, her voice cutting through the wind. We need to find a way to guide her back to the sea. Use whatever you can. Ropes, towels, anything. With purpose, they hurried back toward the house, grabbing supplies and racing down to the rocky shore. Each step felt like a battle against the storm, but the thought of the whale, helpless and in pain, pushed them forward. As they reached the shore, the sight nearly took Julia's breath away. The water glistened under the intermittent lightning, and there it was, a magnificent sperm whale, resting awkwardly on the rocks. It was beautiful, though powerful, and now vulnerable. Everyone, stay calm. Julia shouted as they positioned themselves along the whale's length. We're here to help. Just stay focused. They worked together, forming a human chain, gently wrapping ropes around the whale while David guided the team. Each shove into the water was met with resistance, but the spark of life ignited in Julia and the others. She felt the heartbeat of the community thrumming alongside her own, thumping with purpose. As they strained against the challenges of the storm and the night, rain mingled with sweat, fueling their determination. It was no longer just a rescue, it was a rebirth, their own transformation in the middle of chaos. Just as they thought they were making headway, a deafening crash thundered overhead, and the world seemed to explode in a sound of torrential noise. Julia glanced up, heart in her throat, as a shudder rippled through the whale's massive body. "Keep going," David urged, desperate. "We have to get her back." Suddenly, as the next bolt of lightning illuminated the scene, Julia gasped. There was something shimmering near the whale's tail, a glint that caught her eye just as the tide surged. What did it mean? And why was it there? With renewed urgency and growing curiosity, Julia pushed forward, but a sudden wave crashed, pulling water toward the shore as if drawing them back. Would they succeed in their mission before the storm consumed them all? What lay within that shimmering that could change everything? Julia gripped the rope tightly, knuckles white as she felt the surge of water beneath them. The whale seemed to urge forward, almost as if sensing their presence, pushing against the tide. The shimmering near its tail flickered in the darkness, capturing her full attention. It was almost hypnotic, but there was no time to waste on pondering its source. "Lydia!" Julia shouted, trying to make herself heard over the roar of the storm. "Can you see what that is?" Lydia squinted through the rain, her hair plastered against her face. "I think it looks like some kind of debris. It could be weighing her down." "Then we have to get it off," Julia replied, her heart racing as adrenaline surged through her. They needed to work quickly. If they didn't act soon, they might lose both the whale and the precious moment they were fighting to protect. With renewed purpose, Julia shifted her position, navigating through the rocky shore to get a better angle. David and Sarah stayed close, supporting the whale's body as best they could. The feel of the magnificent creature beneath her hands sent a shock of energy through Julia, reminding her of the fragile connection they all shared with the world around them. "Hold her steady," Julia yelled, looking back at the others. "I'm going in." As Julia edged closer to the whale's tail, the storm seemed to intensify. Each crash of thunder was like a warning bell, but fear had no place in her heart. She reached for the glimmering object, her fingertips brushing against the cold, slick skin of the whale. The world around her faded away, and for a moment, it was just her and the creature locked in an unspoken understanding. Julia grasped the shimmering item, a strange, coral-like structure entwined with something that looked almost like seaweed. Bubbles rose around her hand as she wrestled with it, each tug feeling like a test of will. Panic flooded her, knowing that every second counted, but she pressed on. "Almost there," Julia shouted, her voice breaking through the storm's noise. The other kids cheered her on, their voices rising like a chorus, echoing around the dark. Just as she felt the object begin to budge, a massive wave crashed over her, pulling her back. She gasped as the water enveloped her, but with instinctual determination, she pushed upward, breaking the surface for a moment. Drenched and gasping, she fought against the current, her resolve strengthening with each passing heartbeat. "Julia!" David called out, his voice slicing through the chaos. "We can't leave her down. Just a little longer." With a fierce cry that amazed even herself, Julia lunged back toward the whale's tail, finally wrenching the glistening object free. The moment it broke loose, the water around the whale seemed to sparkle and surge, the creature visibly responding to the shift. "That's it. You did it," Sarah shouted. Hope bloomed in their eyes as the whale shuddered and began to push against the water with renewed strength. Julia looked back, tears mingling with the rain on her cheeks, their collective effort igniting something within each of them, a spark of courage, of unity. But as they continued to struggle, Julia felt a new wave of foreboding. The storm wasn't just a backdrop, it felt alive, ferocious. A quick glance back toward the cliffs revealed a sudden shift in the shadows. Moments later, the ground beneath them trembled with an ominous rumble. "Get back!" David shouted just as rubble tumbled from above. Would they survive not only the tumultuous storm but also the impending danger from above? As the ground shook, Julia's breath quickened, and a new fear gripped her heart. What would it take to rescue the whale and themselves? Julia's heart raced as the rumble grew louder, mixed with the relentless roar of the storm. The ground shook beneath her feet, and instinct kicked in. She turned her focus back to the whale, whose grace was marred only moments ago by fear and entrapment. Now, it was clear freedom surged within it, ignited by their efforts. "Lydia! We need to move!" Julia yelled, her voice strained but resolute. The others hesitated, transfixed by the whale's response to the freeing of the debris, but the tremor of the earth jolted them into action. They quickly backed away, still in awe of the creature, as it shifted its massive form, twisting and gliding gracefully through the turbulent water. Julia felt a swell of pride, their bond momentarily fortifying the chaos around them. Yet the crumbling cliffs reminded them that they were not safe. "Look out!" David screamed, pointing at the stones breaking loose above them. Julia's pulse quickened. She grabbed Lydia's wrist, pulling her back just as another wave of debris fell, splashing into the water with a thunderous crash. The whale seemed to sense their urgency. With a final mighty flick of its tail, it propelled itself deeper into the sea. Watching it disappear into the depths, Julia felt a pang of loss but knew they had done their best. "Simon, we need to find shelter," Sarah cried, her voice thin and quivering amidst the storm's fury. Julia nodded, unwilling to let fear consume them. They stumbled back towards the cliffs, trying to shield themselves from the cascading rocks. As they scrambled, Julia caught a glimpse of something sparkling within the debris that had fallen, a pale glow, reminiscent of the shimmering object they had released from the whale. She hesitated, a new curiosity blooming in her chest, even as panic pressed on her like the rain. "Julia! We can't stop!" David shouted, glancing over his shoulder, eyes wide. "We have to go before we get trapped." But Julia felt a magnetic pull toward the light. "Just give me a sec," she called back. She rushed to the edge of the new wreckage, digging into the sand and stones, her heart pounding not just from the storm, but from a growing sense of wonder. Her fingers brushed something smooth and cool, a strange, iridescent shell, unlike anything she had ever seen. It shimmered fiercely against the dark stone, like a piece of a distant star fallen to earth. Julia's breath caught in her throat, and for a fleeting moment, she forgot the storm, the danger, the whale. All that mattered was this beautiful discovery. "Julia!" Lydia screamed in fear. "Now!" Julia snapped back to reality, and with a last glance at the incredible find, she dashed back to her friends. They took off running along the shoreline, the rain pelting down, darkness pressing in. Every footfall was a reminder of their vulnerability, yet also of their resilience. It felt like they were running towards something, though they didn't know what. As they reached a small overhang, they huddled together, breaths heavy in the damp air. Julia's fingers still tingled from touching the shell, its beauty lingering in her mind. "Did you guys see that?" she gasped, scanning their faces for validation. There was something really beautiful under all that, but before she could finish, the ground beneath them shook again, and this time it wasn't just the storm. There was a crack, a sharp snap, and the overhang began to crumble. "Hold on!" David shouted, his arms outstretched as if to shield them from what was coming. Julia's heartbeat quickened again, but the spark of the shell clung to her thoughts. What secrets lay beneath the chaos? Just then, from the depths of the shadows, a soft glow emerged, illuminating the darkness. Julia's breath hitched. The light seemed to be calling to her, a beacon in the storm. What could it be? The storm was only the beginning of their adventure, and Julia was determined to uncover the truth hidden within the chaos and beauty that surrounded them. The overhang trembled precariously, and Julia felt the ground shift beneath her feet. The glow pulsed softly, as if it were alive. There was something compelling about it, urging her to come closer despite the chaos swirling around them. "Julia, this isn't the time," Lydia shouted, her eyes wide with desperation. But the light was so intense, bridging anxiety and wonder. Julia took a tentative step forward, drawn to the shell. It sparkled as if trying to communicate. It whispered promises of mysteries yet uncovered. Lydia grabbed her arm, pulling her back with fierce urgency. "We have to move now. Look!" She pointed toward the rocks that continued to break loose, cascading like giant boulders falling from a cruel hand. Julia hesitated. But what if it's important? It could be important or not, we're in danger. David interrupted. His worry cut through Julia's thoughts, reminding her of the gravity of their situation. She could still feel the warmth of the shell radiating through her fingers, but the intense fear in David's eyes snapped her back. They turned to run, the sound of their footsteps mixing with the pounding rain and the rumble of the earth. Racing forward, they found a narrow passage between two towering cliffs. Wind howled, and the rain stung their skin, but they pressed on, hearts racing. As they squeezed through the gap, Julia couldn't shake the feeling that something extraordinary awaited them, perhaps even beyond the storm. Once on the other side, the storm's fury seemed muffled. The cliffs formed a protective enclosure, as if shielding them from nature's wrath. They paused to catch their breath, panting in unison. Julia's heart still thudded in her chest, and her mind raced back to the glowing shell. What now? Sarah asked, her voice trembling. She looked up at the craggy walls looming over them, shadows dancing ominously under the fleeting light. What do you think it was? Julia whispered, her gaze drifting to Lydia, whose expression mirrored both fear and fascination. Maybe something magical? Lydia replied, the hint of a bright spark in her eyes. Like evidence of a journey, a transformation. Or a sign, David added, glancing back towards the chaos they'd just escaped. But we can't stick around and figure that out. We need to find help, or a way back home. Home. The weight of that word sank heavily within Julia. It wasn't just a place, it was safety, warmth, comfort. But this new path they were on felt like a turning point, an adventure she'd never anticipated. And what about the whale? Julia asked. It felt connected somehow. Like it knew something we don't. They fell silent, letting the thought hang in the damp air. Perhaps the whale's freedom and the shell's glow were intertwined with their own destinies. A greater purpose leaned just beyond their perception, something waiting to reveal itself. Just then, another tremor echoed through the ground, rattling the very walls around them. Fear flooded Julia's heart once more. We have to keep moving. The ground is unstable. They hurried deeper into the crevice, the mystique of the glowing shell still lingering in Julia's thoughts. The passage twisted and turned, leading them further into the heart of the cliffs. Where does this lead? David asked, glancing back at the fading glow behind them. Julia took a deep breath and squeezed her fists tight as she tried to fall into the rhythm of the unfolding journey, anticipating what lay ahead. She didn't know what they would find, but something inside her whispered it was only the beginning. Suddenly, the path opened into a vast chamber. The walls were glimmering, reflecting the faint light from above. In the center stood a pool, clear as glass, glimmering with hues of blue and green. Is this part of it? Sarah murmured. Julia nodded, curiosity igniting her spirit once again. I think it is. As they approached the pool, a sense of awe enveloped them. She felt the urge to reach out, to touch the water, to uncover its secrets. But just as she stepped forward, surface ripples began to form a sign that something was awakening. What could emerge from the depths? Hope bloomed, intertwined with uncertainty. The adventure was turning into something more than just survival. Julia braced herself, ready to confront whatever awaited them in the shimmering water, her heart a cacophony of fear and excitement. Would they discover a truth that changed everything? Julia knelt by the edge of the pool, mesmerized by the rippling water. Her heart raced as the surface glinted under the dim light, flashing with colors that seemed to pulse in time with her own quickening breath. It felt like an invitation, a whisper from the universe, urging her to let go of her fears and lean into whatever was about to unfold. Maybe it's a portal, Lydia said, her voice low with awe. Like a passage to another world. We could find answers there. David shook his head, his brow furrowed with concern. We can't start chasing shadows. We have to think practically. What if it's dangerous? But what if it leads to the whale? Julia countered, her eyes locked on the shimmering surface. The memory of the majestic creature filled her with a sense of purpose. It could help us understand what's happening. This might be our only chance. Sarah shifted beside her, glancing back at the dark passageway, the distant rumble of the storm still echoing in their ears. I don't know, Julia, what if we lose our way? What if we're meant to keep moving? A heavy silence hung between them. The tension felt thick enough to slice through. Julia took a deep breath, her instincts wrestling with her logic. Each heartbeat reminded her of the glowing shell, the connection to the whale, and the mysteries unfolding around them. Julia, David urged, stepping closer. We don't have time to gamble with this. We can find another way. Let us at least explore this chamber first, see if there's anything useful. She glanced up at him, seeing the concern etched on his face, but something deep inside her triggered a spark of courage. I think it's now or never, she said resolutely. We have to uncover the truth. With one last look at her friends, she pressed her palm against the surface of the water. Instantly, the pool sprang to life. Bubbles erupted and the water rippled violently, swirling around her hand in a dazzling display of colors. From the depths, a shape began to emerge, first just a shadow, then clearer as it broke the surface. Julia gasped, feeling an electric thrill rush through her veins. A sleek form burst forth, glistening with a surreal glow. It was no ordinary creature, it was a young sperm whale, its eyes wide and intelligent. Oh my God! Sarah gasped, taking a step back. Is that real? The whale seemed to communicate through the vivid hues emitted from its skin, a language of colors that danced in shades of blues and greens around them. It circled the pool gracefully, radiating an overwhelming sense of calm. What are you trying to tell us? Julia whispered, her heart swelling with an inexplicable bond. As the whale continued its fluid movements, the water began to shift, revealing hidden patterns swirling at the pool's bottom. Julia squinted, peering closer. They almost looked like symbols, ancient markings that told a story of their own. Look! Lydia exclaimed, pointing. It looks like a map. David leaned in, his expression turning from worry to a mix of curiosity and intrigue. If that's a map, it could lead us back to safety. Or even to the whale's home. The air thickened with anticipation. Julia felt a deep connection to the whale and the mysteries unfolding before her. This was more than just survival, it was an awakening, a call to something greater. As if sensing their collective desire for knowledge, the whale dove back under, and the pool shimmered even brighter. Suddenly, the markings glowed, illuminating the cavernous walls as the water pulsed with life. What do we do? Sarah asked, her voice trembling with a blend of excitement and fear. With her heart racing, Julia turned to her friends, her resolve firm. We follow it. Whatever this leads to, we have to discover it together. We might be uncovering something that could change everything. But as she spoke, a tremor ran through the ground once more, shaking the very core of their belief. The cavern walls echoed their fears, warning that time was running out. Could they trust the whale? Would this journey unveil the truth they desperately sought? A new challenge loomed ahead, and with it, a flicker of hope, urging them forward into the unknown. The water began to bubble and churn, and Julia felt an urgency pulsating through the air. She took a deep breath, steeling herself. We can't let fear hold us back. We have to trust this journey, she said, determination shining in her eyes. Her friends exchanged glances, and in that moment, she felt their apprehension start to dissolve into a shared resolve. Okay, let us go, David finally replied, stepping forward first. Lead the way, Julia. The thrill of the unknown surged with each step as they moved closer to the pool. Lydia and Sarah followed, the atmosphere thick with tension, as if the cavern itself was holding its breath. As Julia dipped her hand back into the water, the pool responded instantaneously, pulsing with vibrant colors. The markings on the bottom glimmered brighter, revealing dotted lines that crisscrossed and spiraled. The whale resurfaced beside her, its deep eyes filled with a wisdom that made her pulse quicken. She could feel an unspoken bond forming. This creature wasn't just a guide. It was a connection to the very essence of the ocean they had ventured through. What do you think the markings mean? Lydia asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Maybe they outline a route, Julia suggested, entranced. A path to follow. Look, that symbol there, it's repeated several times. The group leaned closer, their shadows mingling with the glowing patterns. A ripple sent waves dancing through the markings, and suddenly, images flooded Julia's mind. Ghostly glimpses of sailors, ships, storms, and then a sanctuary filled with awe-inspiring life. I can almost see it, Julia breathed, entranced by the visions. It's like they're trying to show us something important. But her heart sunk when a deafening roar echoed outside the cavern, vibrating the walls. What was that? Sarah shouted, her voice breaking. Fear crept into their hearts as the outside world encroached on their sanctuary. Stay focused, David said, scanning the dimly lit chamber. We need to concentrate on the path. The whale swam closer, its presence radiating reassurance. Julia reached out, her fingers tracing the air above the swirling symbols, feeling a warm pulse beneath her touch, almost like the heartbeat of the cave itself. The markings reacted, glowing even more intensely. It was as if they were alive, responding to her intent. The chamber trembled again, but this time it felt different. Instead of fear, it reverberated with the excitement of revelation. They stood at the threshold of realization, a disturbance of energy swirling all around them. Look! Lydia exclaimed, pointing. The water is showing us something. As the waves swirled with intensity, the pool's surface transformed, reflecting not just light but an entire world beneath the waves. Bright coral gardens, playful dolphins, and the long-lost beauty of the ocean revealed themselves in vibrant hues. It's beautiful, Sarah murmured, in awe of the spectacle. The whale seemed to share this experience with them, flickering through flashes of memory shared through color and movement. Here, beneath the chaos of the storm above, lay an untouched paradise yearning to be discovered. Julia felt hope ignite within her. If we can trust the whale to lead us, maybe we can help protect these wonders. Spread the word, she said, her voice steady. We have to share this beauty with the world. But as the last word left her lips, the ground beneath them shuddered again, stronger this time. The shimmering pool flickered, and the luminous markings began to fade. Yet amidst this impending darkness, the whale let out a haunting song, echoing through the cavern, resonating with their hearts. What's happening? Lydia cried, as shadows loomed closer. Stay together! David shouted, gripping Julia's hand. As the water surged higher, the whale turned to them, urging them to follow. With one decisive moment, Julia dove into the waters, pulled by an instinct she couldn't explain. Her friends followed, driven by a mix of fear and exhilaration. They plunged deep into the liquid glow, the whale leading them through mysterious routes. As they descended, the world above faded away, leaving only fluid memories and vibrant colors. What lay ahead in the depths? Would they uncover the secrets of the ocean's realm, or would they face a darkness they couldn't imagine? The next challenge awaited them, and with it, a chance to redefine their destiny. As Julia's heart raced under the swirling currents, a profound sense of unity enveloped her and her friends. They were diving into the unknown together, a bond forged in chaos and hope. The world above dimmed, replaced by the allure of the watery depths, where the whale danced gracefully ahead, guiding them towards something monumental. The vibrant colors pulsed around them, illuminating an otherworldly landscape. Coral reefs sprang to life, teeming with silvery fish that darted like shooting stars. Each flash of light resonated with the whale's song, weaving a melody that filled the water with a sense of belonging. Julia felt the pull of possibility. Here lay the chance not just to save a whale but to become part of a greater legacy, a narrative interwoven with nature's resilience. As they descended deeper, the magnitude of their mission solidified in Julia's heart. This isn't just about surviving, she breathed, her words a fragile bubble in the water. It's about protecting something beautiful. Around her, her friends nodded, their faces alight with determination. David glided closer, his eyes wide with wonder. If we succeed here, we can carry this message back. The world needs to see this, he urged, a spark igniting in his voice. In that moment, Julia saw the glimmer of hope reflected in their expressions. They were not alone, their struggles mirrored one another, the shared pain of loss intermingled with this newfound purpose. Each beat of the whale's heart echoed the fight inside them, a call to their spirits to rise up and be heard. But just as the realization settled, a shadow crossed over them, dark and foreboding. The water grew colder, and an unsettling rumble vibrated through the realm of light. The whale hesitated, its rhythm disturbed, sensing danger lurking. Fear tapped softly on Julia's shoulder, but she shook it off, fueled by determination. They had come too far to turn back now. "Don't lose grip on what we've found," Julia shouted over the pulsing swell. "Together, we can face whatever lies ahead." With her voice steady, the resolve in the group intensified. Lydia squeezed Julia's hand, grounding them in this collective fight. "If we keep moving, we can find a way to protect this place," she added, hoisting her spirit above the looming dread. As they pressed on, shadows morphed into solid figures, massive forms of neglected debris and nets that once trapped the very life they aimed to save. Julia's heart sank at the sight. "We have to clear this," she said, asserting their goal with urgency. "We need to ensure future generations see this beauty." The whale swam around them, nudging against the nets, tugged in them with grace. The message was clear: they were in this together, human and creature united against the onslaught of neglect. Fueled by a surge of adrenaline, Julia, David, and Lydia began to work, each pulling and tugging at tangled remnants of human waste. They worked in a symphony of movements, laughter mingling with shouts of encouragement echoing between them. The collaboration blossomed, each person pushing beyond their limits, buoyed by the whale's silent strength. With every piece they discarded, more colors blazed through the waters, revealing the vibrant life lurking just below the surface. "Look!" Sarah exclaimed, pointing to little creatures awakening, swimming out from their hidden homes. This is what they were fighting for, the right for these wonders to exist without the threat of destruction. The light pulsed brighter as they broke free the last of the debris. With a final push, Julia felt the whale's powerful presence surge forward. In response, the ocean around them trembled, the water surged, carrying away the remnants of despair into the depths. But as that wave washed away their burdens, the shadows turned. A powerful current churned, threatening to pull them apart. Julia fought against the tide, her heart pounding. "Hold on to each other," she screamed, determined not to let anyone fall behind. As their hands locked tighter, Julia felt the unity spark within them. Together, they swam against the pull, propelled by trust and purpose like axes dividing the storm. Waves crashed around them, but their voices rose above the chaos. "Together," they chanted, each stroke a declaration of resilience. And then, beyond the storm, the colors burst forth anew, the ocean chained to beauty, the whale soaring ahead. Julia caught sight of land, a promise of safety, carrying their echo of triumph. They surged, bodies working in unison, hearts poised for hope, the dawn of a new legacy. As they breached the surface, breathless and exhilarated, the radiant sun cast a golden glow on the shore. Julia felt the warmth envelop them, a gentle reminder of their endurance. They were not just survivors of storm but advocates for change, champions of the unseen. Tears of joy pooled in her eyes as she looked at the familiar faces beside her, now intertwined in purpose. "This is the moment," she shouted, her voice strong, reverberating against the tranquil waves. "We can make a difference." With the glimmering shell still clutched in her other hand, Julia pointed towards the horizon, an ocean of possibilities ready to be stitched into a new narrative. They would share their story, ignite change, and inspire others to stand up for what mattered. Together, they would ensure that the vibrant underwater world would thrive. It was the beginning of an adventure, a call for action that would ripple far beyond the shores of Seaside. But buried within Julia's heart was more than just a duty. It was a deep, unquenchable desire for connection, to heal, to protect, to uplift. This wasn't just about the whale anymore, it was about family, community, and the fierce love that binds them together. And with that thought, the sun rose overhead, glistening against the water, washing away the remnants of yesterday. Each wave bore witness to a new awakening, a reminder that transformation springs forth from where hope and resilience converge. As they turned to face the shore, ready to share their message with hundreds awaiting their return, Julia knew, without a shadow of doubt, in this beautiful journey, they were no longer just individuals, they were a family connected by the bond of their shared purpose. Now, before stepping into the next chapter of their lives, it was time to embrace their community. The festival was more than just an idea, it was a promise, a chance to honor the whale, to rally support for the ocean, and to reclaim their future. And with arms encircling each other, they pushed onward, hearts full, voices strong. Here, beneath this sky, atop this shore, transformation had happened. They were alive with hope, energy, and a burning desire to protect every heartbeat in the ocean. This was merely the beginning. You need to subscribe now to stay connected with the journey ahead. This is the moment to show your support. Drop a like now to fuel the fire of inspiration. Comment below your thoughts and feelings about this ending, and let's share in this transformation together. Don't wait not even one more second. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this journey. It's time to spread love and hope all around.